started for y'all and get through this. Uh, so y'all know who I am. We're gonna go ahead and cover one of the topics out of the five, and the first one is stress management. All right. So rule number one is obviously you need to apply enough stress to recover from. You all do that. We're not gonna really worry about that here. Here's how I kind of split up things. Again, we're going to be talking about stress management, but I also have ones that are going to cover sleep, nutrition. We're going to go ahead and leave out load monitoring because that's more has to do with a lot of the stuff that I have to do in the gym itself. And then we are going to cover hydration as well as some recovery miscellaneous stuff, but that'll be in other weeks whenever you guys tune in for that. So right here, stress management. We're going to cover multiple things that, what is stress? Why do we care about it? And what are some things that we can do to kind of manage it in different ways? So first, what is stress, right? You guys can read that on the screen if you want to. I'm going to kind of go over it briefly. So stress is a state of mental or emotional strain. As y'all know, whenever you do various things, right? Whenever you take a test, whenever you come in here and you work out, whenever you have practice, these various things all cause stress on the body. What is a stressor, right? All the things that I just listed. Homeostasis is our comfort zone essentially, right? It's where we feel the most at balance. Whether that's in, by yourself, with your friends, if it's on the volleyball court, maybe playing another sport, wherever you feel the most safe, that's homeostasis to us. All right. And so what allostasis is that's our stress response. We have a stress response to a stressor, like what we just listed previously. Allostasis is it's designed to get our attention. It's actually essentially we're trying to manage a threat because any outside source of stress is technically a threat on the body. And so we have a stress response to that. And then depending on how big of a stress response we have to that, it's going to cause us to actually change or not. We can relate this to, relationships, having a relationship, having a friendship. A friend does something bad to you, you don't really like it. You feel hurt by it and you kind of take it as a little bit of a threat, right? Maybe you can get some PTSD from it afterwards, something like that. Maybe not, who knows, right? Depending on how serious it is, what type of stress response do you have to that? Sometimes it takes you so far outside of your comfort zone that it actually changes you good for good. That's what all this is. And we can relate that to, the physical responses that we have on the volleyball court or the football field and things like that as well. What are the different types of stressors? Well, we have physical stress, mental stress, environmental, existential, social, and emotional. If you kind of look on the outside right here, you can read some of them. Emotional is anger, shame, fear. Social, stress in relationships, loneliness, rejection, right? Existential is that's kind of like a lack of purpose. Uh, then over here, physical illness, overtraining, things of that nature, mental decision fatigue. So decision fatigue is actually something that we don't really take into account in our daily life, but that as we actually have a lot of decisions that we make on a daily basis. Environmental pollution. We're in Oklahoma, so pollution and noise really we're not really worried about that too much. For the ones that are out of state, though, maybe you have to worry about that a little bit more. Why do we care about stress management? We care about stress management because if we look at a house of any nature, that I look at athletes kind of like a house, right? So we want to build the foundation. If you notice at the bottom, the foundation is cracked. And so if we don't have stress under control, then the rest of all the other recovery stuff that we talk about really doesn't matter. It's because it's not gonna be able to overcome if the stress responses that are coming in daily. So we want to build the foundation up first, and we want to make sure that we get that solidified so that way the rest of what we build upon that will actually have a foundation to sit upon. Here's a great analogy that I really like to use with a lot of athletes. I'm sure some of you have already seen this, but I'm going to go ahead and cover some more. So, if we look at stress as this picture right here, and that can be anything. It can be a weekend hangout, it can be a lack of sleep, it can be nutrition, a squat session, argument, right? Hydration, sport practice, it can be work, it can be anything like that. That's all the different stressors that come to us daily. We look at this cup, we can see that as kind of us, right? And so, how are we pouring the stress that we have into the cup? How much are we pouring into the cup? Not all stress is created equal, but regardless, the cup can only be filled so much, right? What I mean by not all stress is created equal is, sometimes we view things as good stress or bad stress. And that's actually going to be something that we discuss coming up really soon. Because if we look at eustress, that's what I mean by good stress. Over here to the left, we see that, stress that is perceived as beneficial is eustress. Distress is stress that is perceived negatively. In our day-to-day life, sometimes, whenever we're playing a game, we see that as fun, and so that is viewed as good stress. Sometimes we view that same exact game on a different day because we're dealing with outside things as distress, right? We all have those days where we don't want to come to practice, we don't want to go to work, we don't want to show up for the different trainings that we have to do. So that day we look at it as bad stress, but other days we look at it as good stress. How are we filling that cup on the daily, right? So we have family, school, our sport, training. We have friends. If you like to go hunting, all your other outside hobbies as well. We have to throw that all into this. How are we filling the cup up to get the most out of what we're trying to do? This is where stress management keeps coming into play. If we fill the cup too much with these different things, then what's going to happen is we're going to start to get close to burnout. We definitely want to overreach in different ways, and sometimes even overtrain, right? On those times where we're really pushing it hard on the court or the field, and you're doing 2 a days or 3 a days, or you're having long practices, 4 hours a day, something like that, right? It's good to overtrain a little bit at times, but we also want to think about pulling back at times, because if we're always pushing in every which way, then what's going to happen is you're going to overflow your cup and you're going to reach burnout. There's a lot of things that come along with burnout, right? So we try to avoid reaching that burnout state because of this right here. So if we look at, physical things that happen during burnout, we get low energy, decreased strength, decreased capacity, trouble sleeping, increased heart rate. You can see the different things in this list. Same with emotional things, right? So we have mood swings, detachment, lack of focus, anxiety, impatience. I know that I definitely struggle with impatience a lot, so I can't say much about that one. You also struggle in relationships. You become highly sensitive. You have reduced empathy. You have avoidance, polarity, all different things that we want to incorporate in our relationships, so that way they stay healthy. Especially that accountability. Y'all definitely know I'm always preaching about accountability. So here's some other things that start to happen whenever we have too much stress on the daily basis is stress bod, right? Everything starts to hurt. We get back to that brain fog, like what we were just discussing. You keep getting sick. This is a big one. So this is why, especially the ones that come and train with me, you notice I'm always trying to keep track of when you're sick, or if you come in with sniffles or anything like that, because I know that for the most part that's occurring because there's too much stress on the body. So do I need to pull back on the workout for that day, or do we need to go ahead and think about trying to promote recovery in different ways outside of just training for the sport? Sometimes we're doing more more harm than good by doing these different things. The GI issues, we don't have to discuss that too much. Just know that that's definitely a part of this. And then the workouts feel impossible. That goes for your training also, for your sport. Sometimes whenever you're not in the mood to be there and everything is just feeling like it's going to take forever, and it's going to put a lot of stress on your body, that you're probably already in a very stressed out state. So think about that. Right here, we want to think about it because if we apply too much stress and we don't allow recovery to occur, then we're just going to keep going into a deficit, right? Instead of us starting off with a stress response and then recovering and getting a new ability, we're going to continue to go downward from here. And it's going to be hard for us to even get back to baseline. The ones that I've shown this to, a bunch of my athletes I've shown this to already. So you guys, that's just kind of like a brush up. But essentially, we're trying to get you to recover so that way the new ability occurs. If we're pushing every day, all day long, the new ability isn't going to come until you actually recover, which could be, if we push it too hard, then, we're going to be all the way down here instead of allowing for recovery to happen faster. The quicker we get through this cycle, the faster that new ability comes and the faster we can repeat the process. Why do we care about eustress? Because eustress allows us to look at it as good stress. If we look at things as good stress, then essentially it's like we're taking a little bit of water out of the cup. It's hydrating us instead of us constantly looking at it as overflowing our cup. So how can we do that? That leads us to the polyvagal theory. So this is some, advanced stuff. Honestly, if you don't want to, I'm not going to dive too much into this, but it's good to understand that we have three different types of stages that relate to our nervous system. We have a sympathetic state, which is whenever our adrenaline is flowing, we're about to go into a game or we're about to, take a test, depending on how you perceive that situation. You have your sympathetic state. It's a very active state. You have a parasympathetic state, which is more of a relaxing state, which is where that recovery really comes into play. And then you have a social engagement stage, which is kind of a mixture of the two, where you kind of start to find flow. I love to think about flow in various ways because flow actually helps us get through the day more present and we get more out of it. Some of the symptoms of whenever we're in a sympathetic or a parasympathetic state is, fight or flight. I'm sure that y'all have heard of that. In a parasympathetic state, we think of it more as a relaxed recovery, rebuild type of situation. Our energy levels go down, our heart rate goes down, our breathing rate goes down, but a lot of other good stuff comes out of it, right? So protein synthesis, which is where building of our muscle or even building of the tendons, ligaments, and the bone, things of that nature. Whenever we're in a sympathetic state, our heart rate goes up, our breathing rate goes up, our digestive activity goes down. These things all actually harm recovery. So if we're constantly pushing everything all the time and we're staying in that sympathetic state or that high stress state, then is recovery ever really happening? Not all the time, right? So we want to think about trying to snap into this parasympathetic state so that way we find flow. This over here, if we look at it, the graph, we see that less stress is over here to the left and then more stress is over here to the right. And then we have performance on what you would consider the x-axis. And so with that, you can have this to where it's little stress. So you're in a bored state. That's going to affect your performance. If we have just the right amount of stress and the performance is, peaking in that moment, that's whenever we find flow. That's what we're trying to get to. If we have too much stress, that's whenever you start to freak out a little bit or you even crash and burn. We're trying to avoid this for the most part. Sometimes it is good to kind of get to this freaking out stage though, just because you can learn a lot from getting to that stage. A lot of lessons to learn there. So what are some of the practical applications in how we can get from a sympathetic to a parasympathetic state or even a flow state? If we have too much stress going on in different ways, then what we can do is we can find things that, again, that we view as good stress to combat that. What are some of those things? Yoga. Yoga is a really good thing. Mobility flows, 90-90 breathing. If you've been a part of Powerhouse, or if you've been in my gym, or even, if I've talked to you about from online training, then you see that I have a lot of y'all do 90-90 breathing. We just don't do it often. I do it as a way to just show you how to do it, and then you take that and use it in other situations. It's a really good one. It's where you're laying down on your back and you put your legs on a chair or something like that, to where your hips are at a 90 and your knees are at a 90, and you just breathe. You essentially want to act like you're going to sleep, and that's what's going to help snap you into a parasympathetic state, or just that rest and recovery state. It's going to help with your stress management. It's going to essentially be like you're taking a drink of water out of your cup. Nasal breathing is a very good one. I want to go ahead and point that out, because nasal breathing is something that will actually create more nitric oxide. And whenever that gets into your bloodstream, there are a lot of added benefits to that. So try to think about nasal breathing first, breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth. If you want to do box breathing, 4 seconds in, 4 second hold, 4 second out, 4 second hold, you can do something like that. I'm a bigger fan of actually breathing in for less time than breathing out. So 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. That's something that will help reset the central nervous system faster. You can also go for 20-30 minute walks in nature. I am a big fan of going for walks in nature. That's something that resets the body really well also. And, it's just cool to be out in nature, right? Hang out with your friends, or even if you have a boyfriend or girlfriend, go hang out with them. As long as you're not fighting, right? That's going to add negative stress. But usually going and hanging out with those people are good things. And that's something that helps us reduce stress. Zone 2 training, what that is that's a certain type of cardio. Essentially, what you can do is you can just pick any piece of cardio equipment, whether it's a bike, a road bike, a rower, a treadmill, anything like that, and get on there and pick a pace to where you can still talk, but your breathing rate isn't getting too high. That's going to be essentially zone 2 training, and that's going to be something that will help get the blood flowing. It'll also recharge the brain in a lot of different ways. That's going to help reduce your stress. Cheat code, go do some zone 2 training in nature. That's going to be awesome for you. Obviously, go get a massage and avoid alcohol. Who doesn't love a massage, right? Practical applications and training. So this is where mindset really comes into play, because we want to have a positive mindset towards whatever it is that we're doing. Whenever it comes to self-talk, there's a book called The Inner Game of Tennis. It's a really good one by Galway. It's essentially what it talks about is a two-person model. What I mean by a two-person model is you have your brain and then you have your body. Whenever it comes to those two things, how do those two things communicate with each other? Do you have more of a driver? If you think of somebody like David Goggins, to where essentially what it is he just tells his body, we're going to do whatever we need to do in this moment to get the task done. Sometimes that's an ultra marathon, right? Sometimes it's 1,000 pull-ups. Whatever his challenge is in front of him, it's more of a driver. Other times you need to be more of a communicator, though, to where you listen to your body and you decide, hey, am I putting my body through too much right now? These are things that you need to kind of decide how you're going to be, because in some situations, being a driver is a very good thing, but in other situations, being a communicator can get better recovery. So that way we get better adaptation long term. Write these things down. What do you see as good stress? What do you see as bad stress? How can you switch the perception of what you view as bad stress as a way and switch it to good stress? These are little strategies that will help with stress management long term. The more you can view things as good stress, the better you'll be. This recording is about to end, I'm pretty sure, because we got started a little bit late. I was having trouble getting some of y'all in here. But yeah, this is about to end right here.